Hi, and welcome to Treasurefield Homestead. Let me tell you the story of how I hatched a living, breathing chick from a grocery store egg. People are usually really skeptical when I tell them that I hatched a chick out of a grocery store egg, but I promise you that it is possible, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps that I took to do it. One of the biggest obstacles that people bring up when we're discussing hatching out grocery store eggs is the fact that in the United States, those eggs are going to be refrigerated. And that's actually not really an issue. That's actually something that hatcheries will do intentionally to prevent the eggs from developing sooner than they want to, so that they can hatch them all out at once. And this is something that happens in nature too, because the mother hen, she's not laying all the eggs she wants to hatch out at once either. She's laying at most an egg a day, and then she's collecting all the eggs eventually to hatch out. So in the meantime, those eggs are going to have to withstand extreme temperatures, including refrigeration levels of cold. So hatching out refrigerated eggs is not only possible, it's actually kind of common. Step 1 is to get an incubator, or if you have a broody hen, you could give the eggs to her, although she might get a little frustrated if none of them turn out to be fertilized. I'm using a 12-egg Cabana's incubator that I really like, but it literally doesn't matter. Any chicken incubator will work. Step 2 is to have a plan, not only for what you're going to do with any chicks that hatch, but also what you're going to do if only one chick hatches. Because the fertilization and hatching rates are super low for store-bought eggs, it's very likely that you're going to have exactly one chick that hatches, and that chick should not be forced to grow up alone. Chickens are flock animals, so it's going to need friends. What I did is I went to a farm store and I bought some store-bought chicks, and that worked out really well. I also had a brooder ready for them, and I also have my own flock of chickens, so I was completely prepared for any number of chicks that came. Step 3 is to choose the eggs that you want to incubate. And as you're making your selection, there's 3 things you should keep in mind. First of all is to get them from a grocery store. If you're getting them from a farmer's market or a friend's farm, that's fine, but it doesn't really count for the challenge or whatever. Not that anyone's keeping track. Step 2 is to make sure that the eggs are not too old. Now, in the United States, there should be a code printed on the carton, and that code corresponds with the date that the eggs are packed. Ideally, you want eggs that were packed less than 2 weeks ago. That's not always easy to find, and you can get away with getting older eggs. And in my case, I actually didn't know how old my eggs were because the date was printed in like a divot on the carton, and it was pretty much impossible to read. But if you can find cartons where you can read the date, you can look online to find out how to find out what date that code corresponds to. And there's also a Facebook group called Hatching Out Store-Bought Eggs, which should be able to help you as well. The third thing you should keep in mind is the brand. I used Happy Egg Co. because that's a brand that's well known for people being able to hatch out their eggs. There's also Trader Joe's sells fertilized eggs, so those ones will probably give you the best hatching rate because they're intentionally fertilized. What you're really looking for is pasture-raised eggs. You're not going to be able to go to Walmart and get like their 5 dozen eggs and hatch those out. It's just not going to work. Those aren't pasture-raised. You want pasture-raised ones where the farm probably has an accidental rooster or two, or maybe they're even keeping roosters intentionally for like protection or breeding purposes. They might even claim on their website that they don't keep roosters, but chances are that there's a couple of them sneaking in. So you can do more research online to find out brands that work well, that are available in your area, and that's another place where that Facebook group will come in handy. Step 4 is to let the eggs sit at room temperature for 12 to 24 hours, and that's something you should do with most hatching eggs anyways. It's something that I was too impatient to do, but I've heard it does help. Step 5 is to incubate the eggs just like you would any other chicken eggs. I would candle them beforehand to check for any cracks and discard eggs that have them. Then I would candle on day 6 to check for development, but I wouldn't discard any eggs until you candle again on day 10. And when you first realize that one of your eggs is developing, it's going to be so exciting. This is a video I took on day 6 of incubation. This egg is from a Happy Eggs carton that was refrigerated, and look, those are clear veins. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm not even going to candle the rest of these. Oh, should I? Oh, shoot. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to finish candling. Oh my gosh. I don't want to disturb it. I'm so excited. Oh, please, please survive, little guy. Also keep in mind that for blue eggs and brown eggs and any eggs with a really pretty color are actually a lot harder to candle, especially the brown eggs. So you might have to look online for additional tips for candling those. After following all these steps, I ended up with one chick that hatched, and I had bought 4 dozen Happy Egg Co. cartons. I didn't try to incubate all 4 dozen of those. I ended up eating a lot of them. So I ended up incubating somewhere between 1 dozen and 4 dozen. The egg that hatched was actually in the first 1 dozen. So if I had stopped at 1 dozen, I still would have had 1 egg. Actually, if I had stopped at just 1 egg, it would have worked, apparently, because the first egg I took out of the carton and candled turned out to be the only one that hatched. I mean, that's pretty much hatched. Okay, no, that's pretty much hatched. Hello. Hello. Alexa, what time is it?
It's 2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m. Hi, little grocery store egg. Guess you're a grocery store chick now. Yeah, you must be exhausted. Wow. Good job. Yeah, you just need to dry off and then you can meet your friends. I named the chick Miracle because it was a miracle that they hatched out of a grocery store egg. And the 2 chicks that I bought from the farm store to be friends with Miracle, I named Liberty and Lincoln because they were sold to me as Freedom Rangers. I'm pretty sure that one of them was actually a Cinnamon Queen, but that's like a whole other video. And Liberty and Lincoln were about 1.5 to 2 weeks older than Miracle was. And if I had to do it over again, I would have made sure to get chicks that were closer in age. But as it was, nothing bad happened. They became best friends and they've remained best friends even as adults. Miracle was born in February, and it wasn't long before they turned from this cute little fuzzball to a teenage chicken to now, as I'm recording in September, they're pretty much a fully grown adult chicken. And one of the things that developed very quickly on this chicken was the comb. And not too long after I noticed the comb developing pretty quickly, I noticed that he was crowing, and I had to come to terms with the fact that Miracle was a rooster. And so I changed the name from Miracle to Happy Little Miracle because he came out of a Happy Egg carton. And he was still a miracle, just a happy little miracle. And so I call him Happy for short. Now, by this point in the story, months had gone past. Happy was crowing. And even though Happy had been hatched out as a single chick, I had been hatching out other groups of chicks during that time. And I also purchased some chicks. And so I had a lot of teenage chicks that were reaching adulthood around this time. And I had about 7 young roosters. And I had 1 adult rooster named Jet. And Jet is my main rooster. He is a Neom Siami, and I absolutely love him. He never attacks humans, but he's not very tolerant of a large number of upstart roosters, which is what happened to him. And the rooster he had the most problems with was Happy, because Happy was the oldest one. And Happy was starting to show a lot of interest in trying to mate Liberty and Lincoln. And Lincoln turned out to be a hen, and I changed her name to Justice. And I had Liberty and Justice. Happy had bonded with them, and he considered them to be his hens. Well, Jet considered them all to be his hens, and so he did not like Happy trying to mate with them. I noticed Happy trying to mate with Liberty, and then Jet going crazy and chasing him all around the chicken yard. And that's when I knew that they had to be separated, especially when they started injuring each other's combs. And so I took Happy, and this was a mistake, I think. I think I should have done this differently. But I took Happy because I wanted to keep him and give him his own run and his own hens. I took him and I put him inside, and I think I left him inside for too long. Because once I finally set up his run and I put him outside, he went into shock. And I don't know if it was because he had been inside too long or because he knew that I was putting him in the area where Jet was and he thought Jet would attack him. But either way, he was, something happened, and I put him in his new run at night, and in the morning I found him lying on the floor, and I thought he was dead, and I cried out his name. I said, "Happy!" And he looked at me and he opened one eye, and I knew he was still alive, but I was so scared. I was sure he wasn't going to survive. He was completely paralyzed. He wasn't even trying to get up. So I spent hours sitting there with him, trying everything I could, trying all the medicines I had to fix him, and nothing was working. So I went onto Facebook, onto a poultry emergency page, and I was telling people about his symptoms, and someone told me that I needed to get him some poultry cell. And so I drove to that same farm store where I had bought Liberty and Justice. That's like an hour and a half away. Because it was Sunday and that was the only farm store that was open. And I bought him the poultry cell. I also noticed that he had mites on him. So I think what happened is that he went into shock. And because he had mites and lice, that made the shock a lot worse to the point where he was actually paralyzed. And so I treated him with both the poultry cell and the ivermectin. And after many hours of being paralyzed and lying on the floor, hardly ever to get up, hours of dealing with that, after being treated with both ivermectin and poultry cell, he started slowly recovering. And next thing I knew, he was back to his old self, and I was able to officially reunite him with his flock that he had only known for a couple hours. And in his flock was Liberty and Justice and one other hen named Shade. So in that way, Happy ended up getting the second miracle to his name. The first miracle was being hatched from a grocery store egg. The second miracle was that he went from being completely paralyzed and on death's door to being the healthiest looking rooster on the homestead. Yes, he is even healthier looking than Jet is. Jet is such a jerk. He's harassing Happy through the fence. I just want to reassure everyone that this behavior did get better. Jet did have to be quarantined for a few days, but Happy is a lot less stressed now. And although Jet still hates Happy, he doesn't obsess over him like this. Jet! Jet! Look at this little punk right here. So Happy ended up with a pretty happy ending, at least so far. He's still alive and well. Unfortunately, those two hens that were part of his flock, Liberty and Justice, Liberty's fine. As I alluded to before, I think that she's actually a cinnamon queen and not a freedom ranger. But Justice, I'm pretty sure, was a freedom ranger, and they're a meat bird. They grow really, really fast. So she was by far the largest chicken I had in the flock. She was way bigger than any of my roosters. She was definitely bigger than all of my hens. And unfortunately, she was not very tolerant of the heat, and she ended up dying during a heat wave. And she's the only chicken that I've ever lost in that way. So unfortunately, Happy's little flock was reduced. So right now he has a white leghorn named Lothlorien in with him as a temporary kind of containment situation. Eventually, I'm probably going to switch her out with a different hen. But for now, his official flock is Liberty and Shade. So thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something. And if you have any other questions, please put them down in the comments. I'll try to answer all I can. And there's also that Facebook group, Hatching Out Store-Bought Eggs, that you can check out. There are all sorts of people who have done this successfully, and it definitely can be done. There's a couple of obstacles, but it's definitely doable. So with that said, happy hatching, everyone.